Owen Carter has been assigned to the Varani research vessel Etherin for exactly 2 months and 3 days, which is long enough to have developed strong opinions about Varani engineering philosophy, but not quite long enough to feel comfortable voicing those opinions to anyone who isn't himself. The Varani are brilliant. He's not disputing that. Their technology is elegant, their safety protocols are comprehensive, and their research methodologies are sound enough that 3 different human scientific institutions have partnerships with them. But their design philosophy values redundancy and protection over accessibility, which means Owen spends approximately 40% of his maintenance time actually fixing problems, and 60% just reaching the components that need fixing. Like right now, he's wedged into a maintenance tunnel that was clearly designed for being smaller and more flexible than humans, wrestling with a power conduit that's been showing fluctuations for 3 days. The diagnostic scans point to the tertiary junction, which is naturally located behind 2 layers of radiation shielding and requires partial disassembly of 3 adjacent systems just to access. Brilliant, he mutters while carefully disconnecting a secondary relay that's blocking his access. Absolutely brilliant design. Why make critical components accessible when you can turn routine maintenance into an interpretive puzzle? This is exactly how I wanted to spend my afternoon. He knows he's being unfair. The redundancy that makes his job annoying is the same redundancy that keeps the ship operational even when multiple systems fail simultaneously. The shielding that's currently making him question his career choices is protecting sensitive equipment from radiation exposure. It's good design for reliability and safety. It's just terrible design for the poor technician who has to service it. Of course, it's the tertiary junction. He continues his running commentary while running a more detailed scan. Can't be the primary connection where any reasonable person would check first. That would make too much sense. No, we're going to hide it 3 layers deep and make the human contemplate whether he should have studied something easier, like xenobiology or ancient poetry. Dr. Lissatine is working at a research console approximately 4 meters away, reviewing data from the morning's experiments. Owen has been collaborating with her regularly over the past 2 months. She's the lead energy physicist for the systems he maintains, which means they end up working in proximity frequently. She's been remarkably patient with his questions, even the ones that are probably embarrassingly basic from a Varani perspective. She explains complex concepts clearly, never makes him feel stupid for not intuitively understanding alien technology, and has a work ethic that makes Owen's own dedication look casual by comparison. Owen has noticed in ways he tries very hard not to dwell on during working hours, objectively attractive by both human and apparently universal aesthetic standards. The long ears that mark her as Varani rise from her skull in elegant tapered points, longer than those of most Varani he's met, which he's learned indicates some kind of genetic variation he doesn't fully understand. Her movements have an economy and precision that suggests someone who's always spatially aware, never wasting motion or energy. And she has this habit of tilting her head slightly when she's processing complex information that Owen finds unreasonably distracting. Not relevant. Focus on the power conduit. Professional boundaries exist for good reasons. Whoever designed this access configuration has clearly never had to service what's behind it, Owen mutters, finally getting his scanner positioned correctly. Just bury the high-maintenance components behind 3 subsystems and call it protection. Never mind the technician who has to disassemble half the power distribution network every time there's a minor fluctuation. I'm sure they're fine. Technicians love tedious disassembly. It's why we got into this field. He locates the actual problem, a connection that's worked itself loose over time, probably from the normal vibration of ship operations. It'll take 30 seconds to fix once he can actually reach it. It's taken 2 hours of careful disassembly to get to this point. The ratio feels emblematic of his entire experience maintaining Varani technology. Got it, he announces to himself, because talking through problems helps him think and there's nobody listening anyway. Just need to reset the connection, verify the power flow is stable, and then spend another hour reassembling everything I just took apart. Fantastic use of my expertise. Could have been calibrating the new sensor arrays, but no, we're playing archaeological excavation with power junctions. He's backing out of the maintenance tunnel, carefully collecting his tools and making mental notes about the reassembly sequence, when Dr. Tyne speaks. I heard it all. Owen freezes halfway out of the tunnel, tools in one hand and sudden mortification flooding through him. He twists awkwardly to look at her, finds her watching him with an expression that might be amusement, might be something else. He still hasn't mastered reading Varani facial expressions with confidence. I was just talking to myself, he manages, his face doing something that probably resembles a thermal emergency. It helps me think. I didn't mean any disrespect to Varani engineering, which is actually quite sophisticated, and I appreciate the design philosophy even when I'm complaining about specific implementations. You were frustrated with the access configuration, Dr. Tyne says, her standard careful and precise in the way that suggests it's not her first language, but she's practiced extensively. You found the task tedious but necessary. You were concerned about time management, wishing you could focus on work you consider more valuable than routine maintenance. She pauses, her ears tilting forward in what Owen has learned indicates focused attention or curiosity. You also think I'm patient, which you appreciate, and you find me attractive, though you're trying to maintain professional boundaries about that. Owen's brain performs what can only be described as a complete catastrophic system failure. Multiple processes crash simultaneously. His mouth opens, closes, opens again. No sounds emerge that could be classified as language. How did you? He tries to reboot his cognitive functions. I definitely didn't say those last parts out loud. Any of those last parts. I was very careful not to say those parts. No, but I heard them anyway. Dr. Tyne sets down her datapad with deliberate care. You don't know about Varani empathic perception, do you? My briefing materials mentioned emotional resonance. I interpreted that to mean you're good at reading body language and facial expressions. Owen extracts himself from the maintenance tunnel completely, abandoning any pretense of dignity. Not that you could actually perceive thoughts. Not thoughts exactly. Emotions, intentions, the meaning beneath your words. Dr. Tyne's ears rotate through several positions in sequence. Owen has learned these indicate different attentional states, but he hasn't mastered the specific meanings yet. We perceive communication holistically. What you say verbally, how you feel about what you're saying, what you mean but don't articulate explicitly. Your species relies almost entirely on verbal language and learned nonverbal cues. Mine supplements verbal communication with direct emotional and intentional perception. Owen sits down on the nearest equipment crate because his legs have decided that standing is too ambitious given current circumstances. So when I was muttering complaints about access panels and design philosophy, I perceived your frustration with inefficient configuration, your acknowledgement that the design has valid safety rationale, your general preference for direct accessibility over layered redundancy, and your habit of verbalizing your problem-solving process as a cognitive aid. Dr. Tyne moves slightly closer, her movement still precise and economical. I also perceive that you find the work fundamentally satisfying despite surface-level frustration, that you respect Varani engineering even when finding specific implementations annoying, and that you're more comfortable working independently than collaboratively. That's extremely accurate and also completely terrifying. Owen tries to remember everything he's thought while working near her over the past 2 months. The mental catalog is extensive and increasingly mortifying. So every time I've been working in this lab, you've been perceiving not just what I say, but what I'm actually feeling and meaning. Yes, including all the times I was anxious about understanding Varani's social protocols and hoping I wasn't being inadvertently rude. Yes, though your efforts to be respectful were always clear, even when you were uncertain about specific customs. Intent matters more than execution in most social contexts. And the times I was thinking about how you're attractive. Yes, Dr. Tyne's voice remains matter-of-fact, which somehow makes this worse. Or better, Owen can't decide. Though I should clarify that unspoken attraction isn't considered problematic in Varani culture. We distinguish clearly between internal feelings and external actions. Only inappropriate actions violate professional standards, not internal emotional responses. You can't control automatic attraction. You can control how you behave in response to it. Your behavior has been consistently appropriate. Owen covers his face with his hands because it seems like the only reasonable response to learning he's been accidentally broadcasting his every thought and feeling for 2 months. I've been mentally complaining about your species' engineering philosophy while simultaneously having unprofessional thoughts about my colleague. This is going great. This is exactly the kind of impression I wanted to make on my first interspecies assignment. Your complaints about engineering were reasonable technical observations delivered in a humorous internal monologue that suggested frustration tolerance and mature assessment of trade-offs. Dr. Tyne sits on a crate adjacent to his. Your thoughts about me were flattering and proportional. You maintained professional boundaries despite attraction, which demonstrates good judgment and self-control. Nothing you thought or felt was actually inappropriate. You simply weren't aware I could perceive it. That's a generous interpretation of the human technician spent 2 months accidentally broadcasting everything. Owen drops his hands from his face. Why didn't you mention this sooner? That you could perceive emotions and intentions. That seems like important information for effective collaboration. Most humans find detailed explanations of empathic perception uncomfortable. Your briefing materials were intentionally vague because extensive research has shown that humans who learn about Varani perception often become anxious and suppress their natural responses, which actually makes communication more difficult. The standard approach is to let humans acclimate naturally. She pauses. I assumed you knew the basics and were comfortable with it because your emotional responses were so natural and unguarded. That was an error in judgment on my part. I apologize. You're apologizing to me. I'm the one who's been having a 2-month-long internal monologue that apparently wasn't internal at all. Your internal monologue was insightful and entertaining. I genuinely enjoyed perceiving it. Dr. Tyne's ears do something that might indicate embarrassment or uncertainty. Owen wishes he'd studied Varani nonverbal communication more thoroughly. Most humans who work here are so focused on maintaining diplomatic courtesy that they suppress genuine reactions. You were authentically yourself. That was refreshing and valuable for understanding how to collaborate effectively with you. Owen tries to process this. She found his unguarded thoughts valuable rather than offensive. She appreciated his authenticity rather than judging him for it. His most embarrassing revelation is apparently a positive development from her perspective. So you deliberately didn't tell me about empathic perception because you wanted me to keep being accidentally honest. I didn't deliberately withhold information. I genuinely believed you knew and were comfortable. Your emotional responses were so natural and proportional that I assumed you'd made peace with being perceived. Dr. Tyne's voice carries something that might be regret. But yes, I appreciated your authenticity. I'm hoping that now that you know about perception, you won't become one of the guarded humans who suppress everything and make communication more difficult for both of us. Owen sits on the equipment crate, trying to recalibrate his entire understanding of the past 2 months while Dr. Tyne, Lissa, he should probably start thinking of her as Lissa if they're having this conversation, watches him with patient attention. Her ears are doing something complicated that he can't interpret but suspects means she's perceiving his current emotional state, which is approximately complete system overload mixed with creeping mortification. I don't know if I cannot be guarded now that I know you're perceiving my emotions in real time, Owen says finally. That's like asking me to ignore that you're listening when I talk. Conscious awareness changes behavior. It does initially. But most humans who acclimate successfully to empathic perception report that it eventually becomes no different than being heard verbally. You adjust your communication to acknowledge the listener, but you don't fundamentally suppress what you're communicating. Lissa's voice is measured, educational. I'm asking you to trust that I won't judge you negatively for having natural emotional responses, that I understand feelings are automatic and don't require justification or management. That being perceived doesn't mean being evaluated. That's a big ask. Humans are socialized to carefully manage emotional display. We're supposed to maintain professional composure, not acknowledge attraction to colleagues, pretend we're rational beings who make decisions through pure logic. Owen realizes he's explaining human culture to someone who's probably studied it extensively. You probably know all this already. I know it intellectually. But perceiving your authentic emotional responses over 2 months has taught me more about actual human experience than academic study did. You weren't performing professional composure. You were having genuine reactions and managing them maturely. That's different from suppression. She pauses. Can I ask what you're feeling right now, verbally, to supplement what I'm perceiving? Owen takes a breath, commits to honesty since apparently she's been perceiving it anyway. Embarrassed that you've known things I was trying to keep private. Anxious about how this changes our working relationship. Confused about whether I should apologize or just accept that this is normal for you. Also kind of relieved that you apparently didn't find my thoughts offensive, which suggests maybe this isn't as catastrophic as it feels. That's exactly what I'm perceiving, including the relief underneath the embarrassment. And for clarity, you don't need to apologize. Your thoughts were reasonable and your conduct was appropriate. The only thing that's changed is your awareness of how I communicate. Lissa tilts her head in that way Owen finds distracting. May I explain how empathic perception actually works? Technical details might help you feel less anxious about it. Yes, please. Treat me like a technician who needs to understand the system he's working with. Varani neural architecture includes structures, we call them resonance nodes, that perceive emotional and intentional states of nearby beings. We experience this as a form of sensory input, similar to how you experience hearing or sight. When someone communicates, we perceive both their verbal content and their emotional intentional context simultaneously. So it's not telepathy. You're not reading exact thoughts or internal dialogue. Correct. I don't know what specific words you're thinking, but I perceive the emotional tone, the intention behind potential communication, the meaning you're trying to convey or process. If you think I'm frustrated without saying it, I perceive the frustration. I don't hear the sentence in your head, just the emotional content it represents. Owen finds this helpful. System parameters, operational boundaries. Range. How far does this work? Approximately 10 meters for clear perception of emotional content, up to 15 meters for vague impressions of strong emotions. Beyond that, nothing unless the emotional state is extremely intense, fear, joy, anger at levels that would be obvious through behavior anyway. And it's constant. You're perceiving everyone within range all the time. It requires conscious attention, similar to how you can hear ambient sound but choose what to focus on. I can filter background emotional noise to focus on specific individuals or conversations. Right now, I'm focusing on you, which means I'm perceiving your emotional state clearly but barely noticing the other 3 crew members working in adjacent labs. So you've been choosing to pay attention to my emotional broadcasts specifically. Yes, Because we work closely together, and understanding your emotional state helps me collaborate more effectively. If you're frustrated, I can offer assistance or explanation. If you're confident, I know to trust your judgment. If you're anxious, I can provide reassurance or context. Lissa's ears rotate forward, focused attention. Owen is increasingly certain. Emotional context makes communication more efficient. That's why I value your unguarded responses. Most humans try to maintain neutral presentation, which means I'm constantly perceiving suppressed emotions that contradict their words. It's exhausting for both of us. So me being accidentally honest was actually easier for you than if I'd been carefully managing my emotional display. Significantly easier. You were congruent. Your emotional state matched your verbal communication. Even when you were trying not to express something verbally, the emotion was proportional and clear. That's mature emotional processing, not inappropriate display. Owen processes this. He's been anxious about professionalism while actually demonstrating better emotional integration than humans who suppress everything. Okay, that's actually helpful context, but I still have questions. Like, can other Varani on this ship perceive my emotions? Yes, if they're within range and paying attention. But empathic eavesdropping is considered rude in Varani culture unless you're directly involved in the interaction. Most crew members are politely filtering you out unless you're collaborating with them directly. So I haven't been broadcasting embarrassing thoughts to the entire ship, just to you. Correct. Just to me, and only because I was actively choosing to perceive you as part of our professional collaboration. Small mercies. Owen stands, paces a few steps, realizes he's processing through movement. Okay, new framework. You can perceive emotions and intentions within about 10 meters. You've been choosing to perceive mine because we work together. You found my unguarded responses helpful rather than problematic. And you're hoping I won't start suppressing everything now that I know about this. Yes, that's an accurate summary. I'm going to try something, and you tell me if it's the right approach. Owen stops pacing, faces her directly. I'm currently feeling residual embarrassment about the past 2 months, anxiety about adapting to conscious emotional honesty, curiosity about how to make this work, and appreciation that you're being patient while I process. Also, I'm still attracted to you, but I'm trying to figure out if acknowledging that verbally makes it more or less awkward given that you've been perceiving it for weeks. Lissa's ears rise in what Owen is learning to recognize as pleased surprise. That's exactly the right approach. Verbal articulation of what I'm perceiving provides clarity and confirmation. I can sense your emotional state, but hearing you describe it ensures I'm interpreting correctly and gives you agency in how you present yourself. And the attraction part. Should I just keep acknowledging that verb ally, or is that going to make working together weird? Varani courtship customs involve explicit verbal acknowledgement even when emotions are obvious through perception. Unspoken attraction is natural, but acting on it or determining mutual interest requires clear verbal communication. So yes, acknowledging it verbally is appropriate. Lissa's ears tilt in what might be amusement. And for what it's worth, the attraction is mutual. I find your competence attractive, your authenticity appealing, and your anxiety about cross-cultural communication endearing rather than concerning. Owen's brain performs another brief system crash. You. What now? I'm attracted to you. I've been perceiving your interest for approximately 6 weeks and waiting to see if you'd feel comfortable enough to acknowledge it verbally before indicating my own interest. That's standard Varani practice. We don't act on perceived emotions alone because perception can be ambiguous. You might be attracted but not interested in pursuing anything, or interested but concerned about professional boundaries, or interested but assuming I'm not. Verbal communication eliminates ambiguity. So you've known I was attracted to you for 6 weeks and you've been waiting for me to say something. Yes, because saying something provides clarity that perception alone can't give. Now that you've verbally acknowledged attraction, I can verbally reciprocate and we can discuss what, if anything, we want to do about it. Lissa stands, moves closer. For clarity, I'm interested in exploring the possibility of a relationship beyond professional collaboration, if that's acceptable within both our cultural frameworks and doesn't compromise our working relationship. Owen tries to remember how to form words. That's very direct. You appreciate directness. You find elaborate Varani courtesy rituals exhausting, and you've been thinking about me in non-professional contexts for weeks. She's not quite smiling, but her ears are doing something that suggests amusement. I'm being efficient. Okay, yes, I'm interested in exploring that possibility too. I have no idea how to navigate a relationship with someone who can perceive my emotions, but I'm willing to figure it out. Owen realizes he's still holding tools from the maintenance work, sets them down. Though I should probably warn you that I'm going to be anxious about this, a lot, and you're going to perceive all of it. I'm already perceiving your anxiety. It's proportional and understandable. I'm not concerned. Lissa's voice is matter of fact. Relationships involve emotional complexity. The fact that I can perceive yours just means we'll have clearer communication about what you're experiencing. That's an advantage, not a problem. That's an optimistic perspective. It's an experience perspective. I've observed many human Varani relationships. The ones that succeed are the ones where both parties embrace emotional honesty rather than trying to maintain careful performance. Owen considers this. Considers that he's already spent 2 months being emotionally honest without meaning to, and it apparently strengthened their collaboration rather than damaging it. Maybe continuing that honesty intentionally isn't as threatening as it feels. Okay, ground rules for whatever this is becoming. 1. I'm going to keep talking to myself while I work because it helps me think, but now I'm going to be consciously aware you can perceive the emotional subtext. 2. You're going to tell me if I'm broadcasting something you'd rather not perceive, because I'm new to this and I'm going to make mistakes. 3. We're going to have honest conversations about how this empathic perception thing works instead of me just being anxious about it in ways you're perceiving anyway. Agreed, agreed. And I have a suggestion for ground rule 4, which is, we acknowledge the mutual attraction and decide together what we want to do about it, rather than letting it create unspoken tension. I'm suggesting we approach this relationship, if that's what we're calling it, with the same honesty that's made our professional collaboration successful. That seems reasonable, also terrifying but reasonable. Owen manages what might technically qualify as a smile. For the record, verbally and clearly, I'm attracted to you. I enjoy working with you. I respect your expertise and I appreciate your patience with human weirdness. I'm interested in seeing if this attraction translates into actual relationship compatibility. And I'm scared of messing this up, but apparently you're going to perceive that fear anyway, so I might as well acknowledge it. For the record, verbally and clearly, I reciprocate all of that. I'm attracted to you, I value our collaboration, I find your authenticity refreshing, and I'm not concerned about you messing anything up because I can perceive your intentions and they're consistently respectful and genuine. Lissa moves even closer, close enough that Owen can see the subtle patterns in her skin that he's never noticed before. Shall we proceed with this experiment in interspecies relationship building? Yes. But I'm going to need you to be patient while I learn to be consciously honest instead of just accidentally honest. I've been patient for 2 months while you were unconsciously honest. I can be patient while you become consciously honest. They're standing very close now, and Owen is acutely aware that she's perceiving everything he's feeling. The attraction, the nervousness, the hope that this strange situation might actually work. It should be uncomfortable. Instead, it's almost freeing. No need to carefully manage his expression or worry about sending mixed signals. She knows what he's feeling. She's reciprocating. That's clearer communication than he's ever had with a human partner. This is the weirdest first relationship conversation I've ever had, Owen observes. Is it better or worse than your previous relationship conversations? Different. More honest because lying would be pointless. More direct because you already know what I'm feeling. It's weird, but I think I like it. Good. Because this is how Varani relationships function. Constant emotional awareness supplemented by verbal clarification. If you couldn't adapt to it, we'd have a fundamental incompatibility. No pressure there. No pressure. Just honesty about what's required for success. Lissa's ears tilt in what Owen is now confident is amusement. Now, should we return to work, or would you prefer to continue this conversation somewhere with more privacy? Owen glances around the lab, remembers they're technically in a professional workspace where other crew members could arrive at any time. Privacy might be good for continuing this conversation, which I would like to do. My quarters are nearby. We can continue there without interruption. They leave the lab together, and Owen is hyper-aware that every Varani they pass can probably perceive his emotional state. Nervous excitement mixed with hope, mixed with lingering anxiety. But Lissa was right about empathic eavesdropping being rude. Nobody gives them more than polite acknowledgement as they pass. Her quarters are larger than his, but not ostentatiously so, decorated with a mix of Varani aesthetic minimalism and what appears to be human cultural items. Books, images, objects that suggest genuine interest in cross-cultural understanding. You've been studying human culture, Owen observes. I've been studying you specifically, trying to understand the context for your communication patterns, your problem-solving approaches, your humor. She gestures to a seating area designed for Varani but comfortable enough for humans. Understanding your species helps me understand you better. They sit, and Owen realizes this is the first time they've been alone together outside of professional contexts. It should be awkward. Instead, it feels like a natural extension of the collaboration they've already built. So, Owen says, we're doing this, whatever this is. We're exploring mutual attraction to determine relationship compatibility, while maintaining our professional collaboration and learning to navigate the complexities of interspecies communication. That's a lot of things to do simultaneously. You've been doing all of them for 2 months already. You just didn't know about the empathic perception part. Fair point. Owen relaxes slightly. Okay, questions, many questions, starting with, what do Varani relationships typically look like? Because I have human expectations and assumptions that probably don't translate. Varani relationships are built on emotional transparency. Both parties are perceiving each other's genuine states constantly, so deception or performance is pointless. We communicate verbally about decisions, boundaries, and intentions, but emotional context is always present. Lissa explains, physical intimacy is important but secondary to emotional compatibility. We spend time together, assess how our emotional patterns interact, determine if we create stable resonance. Stable resonance. When two Varani are compatible, their emotional states begin to harmonize, not identically, but complementarily. My calm balances your anxiety. Your enthusiasm energizes my focus. We create emotional equilibrium together. She pauses. I don't know if this works with humans since you don't perceive emotions directly. But theoretically, if I can perceive your emotions, we can still create resonance. So you'd be doing all the emotional perceiving, while I just bumble along being human. You'd be providing authentic emotional responses while I provide context and feedback. It's complementary, not unequal. They talk for hours. About expectations, about cultural differences, about what a relationship might look like when one person can perceive emotions and the other can't. It's possibly the most thorough relationship planning conversation Owen has ever had, and they haven't even kissed yet. Should we be discussing this much before even determining if we have basic physical compatibility? Owen asks eventually. Varani prefer to establish emotional compatibility first, Physical compatibility usually follows if emotional resonance is strong. Lissa tilts her head. But I understand humans often prioritize physical connection earlier. We can adapt our approach to accommodate both our species' preferences. I appreciate the cultural accommodation, but I'm comfortable with your approach. Emotional foundation first seems smart. Owen pauses. Though for the record, I'm very interested in the physical compatibility part too, eventually, when we get there. I know, I'm perceiving that interest constantly. Her ears rise with obvious amusement. It's flattering and I reciprocate. Of course you reciprocate. You've been perceiving my attraction for weeks and waiting for me to say something. Owen grins. This is going to take some getting used to. The fact that you know what I'm feeling before I fully process it myself. It will become natural with time. Most humans adapt within a few weeks once they stop trying to suppress responses. They continue talking, and somewhere in the conversation Owen realizes he's genuinely comfortable. More comfortable than he's been with any romantic prospect in years. Because there's no game playing, no trying to present his best self while hiding his flaws. Lissa perceives everything, his anxiety, his enthusiasm, his attraction, his uncertainty, and she's choosing to stay anyway. That's more honest than any relationship he's ever attempted. 3 weeks later, Owen has adapted to conscious emotional honesty in ways that surprise him. He's learned to verbalize his feelings while knowing Lissa is perceiving them, which creates a kind of stereo communication, his words providing structure while his emotions provide context. It's efficient in ways he never experienced with human partners. They're working together on a complex system upgrade, moving in synchronized patterns that suggest deep familiarity. Owen is explaining his approach while Lissa monitors the energy flow, and their collaboration has evolved into something almost seamless. I'm routing power through the secondary junction to avoid overload on the primary, Owen explains while adjusting connections. It's less efficient but safer during the transition. Agreed. I'm perceiving your confidence in this approach. Your anxiety about the upgrade has decreased significantly over the past hour. Lissa makes notes on her console. You've become comfortable with complex interventions. I'm comfortable because you're monitoring the systems and I trust your expertise. Also because you'd tell me if I was about to do something dangerous. Yes, because I can perceive when you're uncertain versus when you're confident, and I can provide input accordingly. They finish the upgrade successfully, and Lissa suggests they take a break. They've been working for 6 hours straight. They end up in the observation lounge, drinking beverages from their respective species and watching the star field rotate past. I've been thinking about something, Owen says, about empathic perception and relationship dynamics. I'm perceiving that you've been thinking about it. The curiosity has been building for several days. Lissa's ears tilt toward him, focused attention. Go ahead. Does it bother you that this relationship is asymmetric? You're perceiving my emotions constantly, but I can't perceive yours. I have to rely on verbal communication and reading your body language, which I'm still learning. It seems unbalanced. It is asymmetric, but asymmetry isn't the same as inequality. Lissa considers her words. You provide verbal clarity that supplements what I perceive. I provide emotional context that supplements what you observe. We're using different communication modalities, but both are valuable. But you have access to information about me that I don't have about you. Doesn't that create a power differential? It could if I use that information manipulatively, but I don't. I use it to understand you better, to communicate more effectively, to provide support when you need it. She pauses. Do you feel that I have unfair power in our relationship? Owen considers honestly. No, I feel understood, which is different from feeling controlled. You perceive my emotions, but you don't use that perception to manipulate me or dismiss my feelings. If anything, you take my emotions more seriously because you're perceiving them directly. Exactly. Empathic perception is a communication tool, not a control mechanism. I can perceive what you're feeling, but I can't change what you're feeling or force you to feel differently. Your emotions are still yours. That's reassuring. I was worried about the power dynamic. I appreciate that you're thinking about it. It shows you're taking this relationship seriously. Lissa moves closer on the observation couch. Can I ask what you're feeling right now? Comfortable, happy, attracted to you. Also slightly anxious because I'm about to ask if we've established enough emotional compatibility to explore physical compatibility. And even though I know you're perceiving all of this, saying it out loud still feels vulnerable. Physical compatibility exploration would be welcome. I've been waiting for you to feel ready. Her ears rise with what Owen now confidently recognizes as happiness. Your anxiety about suggesting it is endearing. You're worried about moving too fast or pressuring me, which shows respect for boundaries even though you can't perceive my emotions directly. So, we're ready for that next step. I've been ready for approximately a week. I was waiting for you to indicate readiness verbally. I'm indicating readiness, verbally and clearly. Then let's proceed. Physical compatibility turns out to be less complicated than Owen feared. Some awkward navigation of anatomical differences. Some communication about preferences and boundaries, but fundamentally successful. Afterward, lying together in Lissa's quarters, Owen reflects on how strange and wonderful this relationship is. I keep waiting for this to feel weird, he admits. The empathic perception thing. The fact that you know what I'm feeling constantly, but it just feels easy. Because you've stopped performing and started just being yourself. That's what makes it easy. Lissa's hand finds his. Most humans struggle because they're trying to manage their emotional display while I'm perceiving their actual emotions. The dissonance is exhausting for both of us. You've learned to let your verbal and emotional communication align. That's mature emotional intelligence. Or I'm just too lazy to maintain elaborate performance. Both can be true. They lie in comfortable silence for a while. And Owen thinks about that first day when Lissa said, I heard it all, and he nearly died of embarrassment. How that mortifying moment led to this, genuine intimacy built on radical honesty, a relationship where hiding feelings is pointless so he might as well embrace authenticity. Thank you, he says eventually. For what? For not telling me about empathic perception immediately. For letting me be accidentally honest before I could get anxious about it. For perceiving my authentic responses and appreciating them instead of judging me. You're welcome. Though I should note, I didn't deliberately withhold information. I genuinely thought you knew. Happy accident then. Owen shifts closer, the best kind of accident. 6 months into their relationship, Owen barely remembers what it was like to be anxious about being perceived. Lissa's constant emotional awareness has become as natural as being heard when he speaks. More natural, actually, because she perceives meaning he sometimes can't articulate. They're working on another maintenance issue, because power conduits will always need attention, and Owen is providing his usual running commentary. Tertiary junction again. I'm developing a personal relationship with tertiary junctions. Not a good relationship. More of an adversarial relationship where I question their life choices and they question mine. I'm perceiving your amused frustration, Lissa calls from her console. It's become a comfortable emotional pattern for you. You actually enjoy the challenge now. I do not enjoy tertiary junctions. You do. You're perceiving satisfaction from solving the puzzle even while complaining about its existence. Humans are complicated. Varani are complicated too. You just have better PR. Owen finishes the repair, backs out of the tunnel, finds Lissa watching him with obvious affection. What? You're happy, it's your default state now. Has been for months. I am happy. I'm in a relationship with someone who understands me better than I understand myself sometimes. Someone who perceives my authentic feelings and chooses to stay. Someone who's teaching me that emotional honesty is easier than performance. He moves to her console. Also, the tertiary junctions have become slightly less annoying with practice. Only slightly. But I'm not giving them more credit than they deserve. They work in comfortable synchronization, and Owen reflects on how far he's come from that first mortifying conversation. He's learned to be consciously honest instead of accidentally honest. Learned that being perceived isn't threatening when the person